Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he says, Rabbi, do you realize what's going on here? I don't know what he's expecting me to say. I didn't respond, and he says, Rabbi, this is Moshiach. The Rebbe Mamish cried his heart out to look and search for Moshiach. And the Rebbe used the expression, Sonntag gesucht, Montag gesucht. Every day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we're looking. Wie viel Ashir? How much can we wait? And the Rebbe was crying, but you can see the Rebbe was like, it shook us up.
Hello, Rabbi Katzman. Thank you very much for joining me here for this conversation, a conversation about Moshiach, about Geulah. Specifically, we're talking on the paper about On Top of Giants, Kananos Al Gabe Anak. And in general, we hope to have a conversation going back in time a little bit to the Kachin Moshiach, the Shturim Moshiach, when it began, and all that. And I hope you're happy to be here as well.
I hope you don't imply that I'm the giant and you're the midget on top of me. No. I'm as midget as they come.
On some level, of course, when we're around, I have what to learn from those who came before me. So that's what we're here to do. So in general, the conversations that we have here often are, to try finding the kishmaka ways to give over the ideas of Moshiach and Geulah in ways that people outside of the Chabad circle can understand. And we're going to get there, Mr. Hashem, but I would like to go on a bit of a different journey. Not often do we have Chassidim over here who have been around and were actively involved for the entire period of time, from when the Kach began, even beforehand. So to be able to go back and understand and to get a feel for what it was like when the Kach and Shtur Mashiach began and following that, that's what we hope to do now. So just to set things up for a second, what years were you a bacher? What years were you a young man? What's your? I don't want to age you. I want to know.
My childhood was in the Chofs, the 60s, and my teenage bacherische Jahren were in the Lamets, the 70s. These are my prime years.
And then younger man, I guess, Mems.
And then in the Mems, I ended up staying in Crown Heights. By nature, I'm an Asken. So I was always involved one way or another. Thank God, on certain of my activities, I got a very clear stamp of approval from the Rebbe. So I'm hoping that I contributed.
All right, we'll hear all about it, hopefully. All right, so this is something which comes up often, and especially for people in my generation, the younger generation, it's a little hard for us to imagine what it was like. What is in the tkufa before? I want to rephrase that question. Okay, so so I want to ask you, as someone who grew up before the nuns, and I grew up a bacher, got married, got involved in Askanas Klalis and Rebbe's work before the Kach and Mashiach, so to speak, began. I mean, Chassidus talks about it. It's definitely a topic, and the sikhs are full of it too. But as a topic, as a subject, where was Mashiach in the mind of a bacher and the Lameds and that kind of thing?
If I can step back a little, before I became a bacher as a child, the education that we got as probably, I can say, as children of Mesiras Nefesh generation, children from Rosh and Platim, Chassidim, there was a big emphasis on Mesiras Nefesh. So, in a way, what was played up was you can almost say the Geulah, like the beauty of Geulah, how wonderful Geulah is and what you can achieve through Geulah. Moshiach was a concept, maybe even a distant concept. I can probably say that the first direct encounter we had with Moshiach was probably, I would say, what we call Yud Shvat HaGodel, Tov Shin Lamed. And I don't know if I'm allowed to admit, but there was even a language kind. There was a saying, what do I need Moshiach? I have the Rebbe. I don't know if you're allowed to say it, but
This is a safe space here. You're good.
that's the way it was. You had what you needed. You had the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was leading us, and the Rebbe was giving us everything. But when it came to Yud Shvat, Tov Shin Lamed, was the 20 years, and people started talking about the fact that the Rebbe said, I think it's in Kotesichas Chelik Beis, the Rebbe mentions about the Friedrich Rebbe who said, B'yom of Yihi Adover, that Moshiach will come in his lifetime, so to speak. And the Rebbe asked the obvious question, how does that jive? How does it work? And the Rebbe said that we find that by Shimshon, Vatishke Teoretz Arboim Shono, that the times of Shimshon was 40 years. In reality, it was only 20 years. And Chazal tell us that the pachad of Shimshon HaGibber was so strong that for 20 years afterwards, Vatishke Teoretz, the land was quiet and peaceful because there was still the awe and inspiration and leadership of Shimshon was still effective. So as that time approached, people started thinking, we're approaching 20 years, so that's it. It has to be now. I don't know who initiated it and how exactly there, but I remember this conversation. As we were getting closer to Yud Shvat, a short while before Yud Shvat, I don't remember, was it a week or 2 weeks before Yud Shvat, the Rebbe mentioned by Fabringen that he got a letter from a lady in Eretz Yisrael who wrote that the Friedrich Rebbe initiated to write a Sefer Torah for Moshiach, and she wants to register her children in this Sefer Torah. She wants to buy letters in the Sefer Torah. And the Rebbe spoke about that. The initiation came from a lady in Eretz Yisrael. Nobody even thought about it. And the Rebbe immediately it became a campaign to sign up as many Yidden to Sefer Torah Moshiach, and then the Rebbe let us know that he's going to conclude to finish that Sefer Torah because it was never finished. And now he's going to finish it. And the actual writing, the Siyum Sefer Torah, happened Erev Yud Shvat, Tes Shvat, Friday afternoon, like the closest time to Yud Shvat, 20 years. All of a sudden, there was an excitement and intensity built up, besides for the fact that many Orchim came and the Rebbe acknowledged the, so to speak, the celebration of this moment. But everybody, it was like, that's it, it's happening. And there was a feeling, you felt it in the air. It was so thick. That's it, Moshiach is coming. All of a sudden, it took us over completely. I don't know if you ever noticed, but nobody knew about that. The Rebbe ordered a keser for the Sefer Torah. In Lubavitch, a keser was not the thing. But the Rebbe had ordered a keser. And then when Rabbi Simpson, who was carrying the Sefer Torah, he was from the Vad of Sefer Torah, and he walked down in Psalm 70 with the Sefer Torah. The Rebbe followed him. He went first with the Sefer Torah. The Rebbe followed him, and the Rebbe held a box in his hand. Nobody knew what the box was, except for the people that were standing like sort of above the pathway, the shvil that the Rebbe went through. And they were able to look down into the box, which was open. And they saw a keser. There's a picture from the photographer. You can see one of the bochrim looking down, and he's like shocked. Fine. we didn't see the picture, we didn't know about it, but whatever. What was his expression of shock? He saw a keser. It didn't even occur to him that it's a Sefer Torah. This is a keser the Rebbe is bringing for Moshiach. Anyway, in the end, after the Sim Sefer Torah, the Rebbe took out the keser and placed the keser on the Sefer Torah. But it was like so real. And if I may say, afterwards, like the culmination of this whole Yud Shvat was on Chof Shvat. 10 days later, the Rebbe made a special farbrengen for the Orchim as they were leaving. And when they left, it was like, what a letdown. Really? We blew it? Moshiach didn't. People couldn't believe it. It was like all of a sudden, Moshiach became real, and there was a real disappointment. I think that was probably, that I remember, was a major turning point, that Moshiach became something more real, more serious. We started associating every special moment with Moshiach. For example, 2 years later, Yud Alef Nisna Godel, Shivim Shona, Tovshin Lamed Beis, has nothing to do with, it was the Rebbe's birthday, but it was a special moment, a high point. Every high point, somehow your mind associated, okay, that's it, that's the Eis Rotzen, that's when Moshiach is going to come. That's probably the first we encountered Moshiach, like in a way that we felt it's real. Then, in general, somehow, there's the famous story, Rabbi Elkan, he was standing at a bus stop waiting for the bus, and there was another Jew there. And he turns to Rebbe and says, "No, when is the bus going to come? We've been waiting for so long." So he kind of responded, after Moshiach will come. Like Moshiach is like more imminent than the bus coming. And the Jew responded, you're a Lubavitcher. So people, for some reason, did associate, there's something about Moshiach that a Lubavitcher Chassid thinks of more than others. But it was still not in the forefront of everything. It was part of the psyche, it was part of the thinking. But then as years moved on...
Let me just ask you.
Sure.
Yud Shvat, Tafshin Yud Aleph, Basi Lagani, the whole idea of there being the Der Shvi is its own Der and has its own Tachlis, and the Tachlis is during Mashiach. That wasn't what was spoken about it growing up?
I have to say something which... to me, personally, it's a little painful. I never heard about this Maimer. I remember growing up, we knew the Rebbe was not Magia Maimorim. There was one Maimer we grew up that the Rebbe was Magia. It's called Maim Rabim Tovshin Yud Zayin. I remember I was scouring in my father's boxes. I started going through where he had his collections of Hanochas, of Maimorim and Sichas and whatever goods he had there. And I'm pulling out a kuntres, Bosi Legani Tovshin Yud Aleph. I pull out another one, Bosi Legani Tovshin Yud Beis, Hayisheves Baganim Tovshin Yud Aleph, and Bosi Legani Tovshin Yud Beis, and then another one, Bosi Legani Tovshin Yud Gimel. And on the front cover, there is the Sharblat. Like the Rabbeim, they have a Sharblat, and our Rebbe has his Sharblat. And here, the Rebbe's Sharblat is on this kuntres. I open up the kuntres. It was in mimeograph form, but it had a Sharblat. I pulled it out. I remember I went to my father. I asked him, what's this? I grew up knowing that Mugedike Siches have a Sharblat. Mugedike Maimorim have a Sharblat, but there aren't any. How does this Maimer have a Sharblat? And my father explained to me, this is a Mugidike Maimer. It was the first I heard. I can't remember how old I was, but I remember the event. That's when all of a sudden I heard that there was something, there was more Maimorim that were Mugid from the Rebbe. And I heard about this Maimer. To tell you that I heard and I was taught and spoken to about these inyonim, I can't say this. I can't say this. And I say it's painful because why not? I don't remember Chassidim had a koch in this. There were I don't know how to call them, the Spitz Chassidim, very special Chassidim, that, they were what you call Dorashvi, Koch. But as a rule, it was still subtle. It wasn't in your face. They didn't push it on you. They didn't even, I can almost say they didn't educate you enough. He wanted you to be a chosed, those lernens, those davnens, you should be a good person, but shlichus, eventually the Rebbe wants shluchim. I mean, even shlichus was not yet the rule. There were certain people who were shluchim, but...
And shlichus wasn't seen either as a Mashiach thing specifically? As a... getting the world ready?
Probably not, no. Shlichus was more, the way I remember it, Shlichus was, to do the Rebbe's work, to spread Yiddishkeit, to spread Chassidus, and to make Yidden Shem Neteru Mitzvahs, and be mekarev them to Yiddishkeit. Ufaratzto, spread out, spread forth. To say that the focus was Mashiach, I don't think so. I don't remember it that way. Mm-hmm. It's definitely changed. Definitely changed.
So you were saying, when did it change? When did you start seeing the change?
First, let's paraphrase the Rebbe himself. The Rebbe himself once said about himself that he wonders, people ask, what's mit the Koch in Moshiach? He says, I didn't see it by my father. I didn't see it in previous generations. And the Rebbe said, I didn't even see it by myself. And only now it became a lot more intense. So definitely it evolved and there was a more intensity. I mean, probably the time came. and who, like the Rebbe, knows? I would say I'm probably also inserting my own speculation a little, my own view. I would probably say a major turning point was Tovshin Lamed Zayin, when the Rebbe revealed and gave out the Ayin Beis for publication. The language the Rebbe used, it was Moshiachdik. It's nifloes, it's wonders, it was a sprach like, we need this for Havotzas HaMayonos to bring Moshiach. The Rebbe used, I think, the expression that he's minea, he's holding back Havotzas HaMayonos, which is supposed to bring Ta'emos Haiko Simar. And the Rebbe gave out the Ayin Beis. And then in the next few years, slowly but surely, more and more and more Chassidus, which was hidden treasures by the Rabbeim in the library and Kisveya that were never published, and all of a sudden the Rebbe released it all for publication. I can say as a bocher who experienced Tovshin Lamed Ches, when I can almost say the first time we encountered the Rebbe's mortality. It was emotional. It touched us all of a sudden. I grew up knowing the Rebbe's a malach, the Rebbe's an angel. Never saw the Rebbe take a break. The Rebbe sat Fabringens for 7, 8, 9 hours, never took a break, never took a day of vacation. The Rebbe's an angel. He's heavenly. I didn't look at the Rebbe as a human being, even if I saw him as a human being with all the trappings. But the first time the Rebbe had a heart attack, it was like, no, that's impossible. Then you start thinking a little more. And then all of a sudden, the Rebbe he planted something in our minds, in my mind at least, right after the heart attack. The famous discussion that Rebbe had with the doctors about a needle, how a needle is administered, if it's the vacuum that affects the needle or it's the pressure. And the maskona, the conclusion was that it's the vacuum that makes the needle effective. And from this, the Rebbe sent a message to Rabbi Yossel. It's the idea of tzimtzum b'shvil hagilui. And the Rebbe told Rabbi Groner that he should tell Rabbi Yossel that he should develop it according to his knowledge and understanding of Chassidus. And of course, Rabbi Yossel, ki yad Hashem hatov v'elov, was able to stand there by the Fabringen and explain it. Now, that was so comforting. The Rebbe gave you such a comforting thought. And you felt a little, at least the Rebbe is taking care of us. He's saying the right words. Wait a minute. How many things do we learn? These are good thoughts. It's a geschmack. A geschmack in maimer, a geschmack in wort. It's all good. What has it got to do with day-to-day life? And then we started noticing that by the Rebbe, it's actually reality. The Rebbe told us, tzimtzum b'shvil hagilui. He had a tzimtzum. He had to contract himself compared to us. We didn't see him for a while, but all of a sudden, he started giving like never before. A revelation. You mamash saw the gilui after the tzimtzum. In my mind, there was like it shifted. What you learn is real. Reality, what you learn in the books is really reality. And you have to be able, as long as you don't see it and you don't experience it, you don't relate to it that way. But then all of a sudden, this is real. It's not, if I may quote Rabbi Gringlas from Montreal, had this expression. He said, Rebbe, das ist nicht kein Chumash-Meise, das ist eine ferische Zeitung. It's not only a story in the books, it's real life. And that changed. In my mind, it changed everything. All of a sudden, I started looking at things. So slowly, the Rebbe, as Tovshin Mem came around, and then specifically Tovshin Mem Beis, when the Rebbe associated the name of the year, Tehishnas Bias Moshiach, and consequently every year was connected with Moshiach in some way. The Rebbe started giving out the Kisvei Yad and publishing Sforim with such intensity. There was a period that every 2 weeks there was a new Sefer Chassidus. And today we have over 600 Sforim, which we never had. This, you had to think what's going on. And it was, by then we already knew about Bosilegani Tovshin Yud Aleph. You already knew Bechlal about Bosilegani, Bizbuz Ha'itzres, that the Rebbe is talking about splurging of treasures for the last battle. And you see it's happening. And Chassidus, we know Bechlal is Teros Shel Moshiach. So you start
putting it together. The puzzle started
it's coming together. There is something. And then when the Rebbe started Tzivus Hashem, and the children composed the song "We Want Mashiach Now," and the Rebbe picked up on it. And the Rebbe started talking more openly how everything we do has to lead to how we can bring Moshiach, Pula Achas, the Rambam, also Maisa Achas. You bring salvation to the whole world. It's all of a sudden it is Bekalim. It's starting to make sense. It's not just an abstract emunah, and you don't know how to relate to it. And it became more intense and more intense. And this moment and this moment and this is it. I mean, by then already I'm talking, I was already a married man, a family man. But still, I was involved. I was part of Tzivus Hashem. And one of my little contributions to Moshiach, if I can say so, was the logo of Tzivus Hashem, which the Rebbe explained with the 5 crowns on the top, the Chaymo, the 5 Chamisha Kumshetera, the day and night. But then on the bottom, there is like a banner which has the words, "We want Mashiach now." This was not part of the original logo, and it was my thought to add it, and the Rebbe accepted it. Mm-hmm. And it became the logo. The slogan, children, is "We want Mashiach now." And the Rebbe would start singing, and the Rebbe would turn to the children, they should sing. And then over the years, we have the few very famous moments. Chamisha B'Shvat, once when the Rebbe Mamish cried his heart out about Vifla Shir, Vifla Shir, to look and search for Mashiach. And the Rebbe used the expression, Zumti gesucht, Monti gesucht. Every day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we're looking. Vifla Shir, how much can we wait? And the Rebbe was crying bitterly. It shook us up. Or the Sikha, when was it? Memdalet, Chalamoid, Sukkes. One of the Sikhas also, I think, Yishayna Rabbi. Also very, very bitter tears. And you can see the Rebbe was like, Take, how come Mashiach didn't come yet? And then very famous Sikha of Purim Tovshim Mem Zayin, that where the Rebbe kind of put it on us. He said, guys, it's your job. In the past, you could rely on a Rebbe. You can't do that anymore. Now it's up to you. You have to do things. And Memches was a major game changer. The Rebbe himself and the Sikha started talking a lot more. The focus was on Moshiach a lot more. And as we came closer to Tafshin Nun.
So just before we get into the Nuns, what was the feeling as young light? What was the feeling in 770? Was there urgency? Was there just excitement? You were hoping that Rebbe was going to do it. You felt any responsibility? What was the...
I don't want to sound holier than thou, but I really thought that I'm bringing in children who will be right there. They're going to grow up with Moshiach. I couldn't see it in any other way. It was like, that's the condition of marriage, to move on. Everything already was taken over by Moshiach. Everything. You asked before, Shluchim. Shluchim, yeah, it was about Moshiach. It was about Vatem Tluktu Echod Echod. When the Rebbe spoke about Tanyas, why don't we talk about Tanyas? The Rebbe said we should publish Tanyas everywhere. There was this huge mitzvah to go to every corner of the world to make sure that there's a Tanya published, because that's part of Afotzas Amayonos, of preparing the location for Mashiach. Like Mashiach has to take everyone. So, yeah, you felt it. There was something that made you feel it's real. It wasn't an abstract thought, and I think that's the major change in the MEMS.
So, following that, as you can imagine where we're going from here. So, following, what was the, looking back, there's, Chav Nissen, and then there's all the Tosher and Alef Sichas. The Rebbe starts to speak. We're going to speak about Mashiach last week and the past week, and the Rebbe starts to go. All the Sichas from then on are about Mashiach. But you were living it real time. You were living it while it was happening. What was the feeling then? Did it feel like an extraordinary Sicha? Did it feel like everything was changing? Did it feel like there's a new tkufa?
In America they have this thing. They ask you, "Do you remember where you were when JFK was shot?"
Now they say 9/11.
It's like one of those memories that if you lived then, you should know exactly where you were when you heard it. Or I think they say the same thing about the shuttle when it exploded. If you remember they're like moments that are ingrained in your mind. This was definitely one of those moments. And I say of myself, I remember exactly where I was standing while I heard the Sikha. And I remember I was so shaken up, frightened, and I can almost say physically trembling. Like, what did I just hear? But there was a build-up. I go back a little. I think Tofshin Nun was very major. Teheshnas Nisim. And the whole, how the Rebbe was prophesying, it's going to be Nisim and Nisim and Nisim. And then there was a change to the world order. The whole world changed completely. Communism fell. And like by the Lag B'Omer parade, Tofshin Nun, they paraded the floats, the history, or I shouldn't call it history, but what was happening in the world then. Connect the dots. Look at this is Moshiach. This was like the Rebbe started as a chassid. You looked at the Rebbe changed his attire from wearing in the weekdays a woolen kapote and Shabbos a silk kapote. Tofshin Nun, the Rebbe changed to wearing a silk kapote all year, all week. And to us, this was the Rebbe's preparing for Mashiach. The Rebbe put on new shoes for the first time, I don't know, in 30 years. A new pair of shoes. Yeah, we're preparing. Mashiach is in the air. And then came the Yud Shvat, Arboim Shono, 40 years. And the Rebbe's theme for the year was Noson Hashem Lochem Leiv Lodas Ve'inayim Liris Voznayim Lishmoya. The Rebbe says that Moshe Rabbeinu told the Yidden, it's 40 years. By now, it's time that you guys should stand on your own feet. You have eyes that see, you have ears that hear, and understand, comprehend what's going on. And the Rebbe is telling us, also connected with Arboim, after 40 years, Koi Minish Hadaita the Rabbi, you should understand already where you're at. That was the Rebbe's theme for an entire year. Reminding us, I can't say at the time I related to it that way. But looking back, the Rebbe was demanding from us, in simple words, step up to the plate. And yeah, whatever. In a way, on the one hand, there's no question, the Rebbe conquered the world. Shlichus was at its prime. Shluchim were going out. It was like the thing. The thing for anybody, you get married. It was almost like a saying. Why would somebody want to get married? You have no choice. They're not going to let you go on shlichus. The only way you can go on shlichus is if you get married. I mean, that was like the the funny way of expressing it. But you're Mekarev Yidden. Fotzas Hayadus, the Chanikim and Neiris, with everything was like super. Gvaldik Atzlache. Step up to the plate? Of course you stepped up to the plate. The Rebbe even used that beautiful expression when he had the meeting with Haguch, Tovshim Memtes, and the Rebbe said, Baruch Hashem, with them Nachas Mezet, Gdoim Naset Yoshim, that the young calves became mature, and incredible atzloche. But the Rebbe was demanding one more point, and I think I for sure didn't catch on. Only looking back, in hindsight, I think the Rebbe was saying, guys, true, also good. In Maisa, you're fantastic. But what about the Naim Liris? Was Naim Lishmeya? And Das to understand. So the Rebbe is kind of demanding, I want a little more. I want my Chassidim. I want my Chabad Chassidim also. You know, we kind of end up being semi Chagas Chassidim. Dollars. Keshel Broche. The Rebbe is very good. He gives us broches ad belidai. He shepherds us like the loyal shepherd. But the Rebbe wants a little more. Again, hindsight, that's what happened on Chov Zayin Chov Ches Nissen, I think. When the Rebbe spoke, the Rebbe he let out his frustration. The Rebbe used the word, if you would say Ad Mosai with an emes, only once Moshiach would have come already. And the Rebbe is complaining, what else can I do to get you to say Ad Mosai mit an emes? This, I think, is a little overlooked. It's like a conventional wisdom that the Rebbe said, what else can I do to help bring Moshiach? Everything I did was for naught. The Rebbe never said it. If you look inside, in the Sikha word for word, in the Mugadik especially, the Rebbe is complaining, everything I've done to get you to say Ad Mosai mitan emes was for naught. What else can I do to get you to say Ad Mosai mitan emes? That's what the Rebbe is complaining. The Rebbe is demanding emes. What's emes? Emes is Chabad. Emes is a chosid that's with his whole Ramach Evorim, Shasak Gidim, he's a chosid through and through. Pnimius is emes. You know, this is the famous story. I can say I witnessed it myself, but it happened with Rebbe Hessel Zeitlin from Montreal. He was once on Simchas Torah at night after Akofes, and he was a little after Mashke. And the Rebbe was going out from Akofes, was going into his room, and he was standing next to the Rebbe's room. And he was shiker, and he was crying. And the Rebbe walks by, he looks at him, Simchas Torah, like, what's for Avena? What kind of crying? And he turned, it was a Chassid Sherid, and he turns to the Rebbe and says, Mi soll halten a horele b'memes. Like, the dream of a Chassid is that mi soll halten b'memes. And the Rebbe looked at him with a big smile, and he raised his hand. Was a bissel emes? A sach emes. But emes, the Rebbe wants a little emes. And the Rebbe is complaining. So what does the Rebbe say? Everything I've done didn't work. What's the only answer? I give it over to you. From now on, you should know it's up to you. Emes is something I cannot instill in you. As the saying goes, you can bring the horse to the water, you can't force him to drink. I brought you to the water. It's all there for you, but now I need you to start drinking. The Rebbe wants us to be real. Now here, now it's kind of, I'm not the person to speak as a mashpia or giving musar. I'm talking to myself. It's part of my thinking. Something has to change. And it's hard. It's very hard. You're telling me I should become a pnimi? Am I shaykh? I know who I am. How is it possible? The big Chassidim from generations past didn't work. And they were Chassidim, pnimim, emes, metals. And all of a sudden, I'm going to make the difference. So it's hard to absorb and to digest and to implement, but I think that's what the Rebbe wants.
So before getting into the specific avodah, which of course there's a lot to discuss there, I want to ask you from the sense of urgency and excitement and the realness of it, because one of the points that we're doing here in the Alef and Moshiach Office, whatever it is we're trying to bring the relevance and the importance of Moshiach to everybody. By us, by Shluchim, by Geulah, by Lubavitchers, to bring it out in ourselves, and either by extension or as such, whatever it is, to reach them, to reach the world, to reach our constituents, so to speak. But that's a hard thing to do. So the specific avodah we're going to get to soon. I was just trying to figure out. I mean, it could be it was just electric, but the urgency that the Rebbe created, the koch. I mean, as we discussed, these ideas, these points exist there. You open the Torah, you find the same truth is there too. And even in the Rebbe's itself, earlier you don't have this way of speaking. And the Rebbe creates an urgency. The Rebbe creates a koch, a fire. Is there, in a way, in Rabbi, what's the secret of it? And is that something that can be given over to other people today? Is that a sprach that we can speak today, that we can share with others today, that we can develop in ourselves?
For that, we should go back to what the Rebbe spoke about. And I think it's Yutas Kislev, Tav Shechavov. The Rebbe spoke about the correlation and the parallel between the evolvement and the development of science in the physical world and the revelation of Pnimis HaTeira in the Teira world. And the Rebbe says they coincide. The time of the Baal Shem Tov, that's when the Industrial Revolution took place. And since then, the world is evolving and becoming more modern and more sophisticated. There's more wisdom, more science, more. And parallel to that is the revelation of Chassidus, of Teira, of Pnimis HaTeira. This theme continues. So, for example, the mere fact that the Yidden, thank God, never had it so good in history, in 2,000 years of Geulah. Yidden never had it so good as they have it in the last 50 years. Baruch Hashem, we live in freedom. The wealth, the abundance, the growth of Teire. Yiddishkeit is flourishing. While science is developing. So I say, you have to look at this and say, there's a connection. Everything we see, there's a connection. We use it. You talk about, the Rebbe said, we're going to conquer the world. You're going to reach every Jew in the world. You're going to influence, you're going to impact everyone. I mean, 50, 60 years ago, it's a pipe dream. I mean, the Rebbe has very high goals, very strong goals, but is it physically possible? Yeah, it could happen. A bocher can go on a shlichus and be in that town and meet one Jew. But you're talking now millions. You're talking about reaching the world. You talk to someone today, you say, you're talking like your generation, my generation. Your generation, you don't even understand what's the problem. Something called internet. You put in knowledge, you put in data, and the fact is this data reaches the entire world. It's a reality. So when you talk to a person in this world with both feet on the ground and he knows what's flying, he can't deny it. There have been major changes. The internet changed the world forever. I don't know how to explain exactly the AI, but also maybe the AI is Evan Mikir Tizak. You know, it's the inanimate is talking to you. The rocks on the hills are talking to you. The waves in the air are talking to you. And what are they communicating? Godliness. This is incredible stuff. And any normal, I can say from my own conversations, mefedish, you talk to normal human beings, Yidden, who are interested, and you explain to them, look at what's going on around you. Something is really inherently different. Something really changed. What is it? You know what? You're forcing me to tell a story.
I'm not against it.
You're forcing me to tell a story which I experienced, and I've been living with it for over 20 years. Only recently, I lost a very good friend. His name was Joe Aronow. This Joe Aronow, he's known in the Moisdes. He was a wonderful human being. He became wealthy in the last 25 years, very wealthy. And his slogan was, the more you give, the more you get. So he was a real balzdokya in the biggest way. He supported many Chabad houses and many moizdes. I mean, not only Chabad, I mean, it was a huge balzdokya. My luck, I knew him before he was wealthy. So we were personal friends. I used to fabring with him a lot. He invested, he created a telecommunications company. And we used to spend time in fabring. I don't know if you want to hear both instances, but the message was the same from both. The only reason I say both, because they were two extremes. I was sitting once as technology was developing. When he started, it was pretty much ordinary phones. Cell phones were just barely starting. It was still the regular phones and communications, and he was futuristic, and he was always looking for more, better technology. One day he tells me, you know what technology has come to? Now you're able to communicate with such speed and at low cost or no cost. I mean, years ago, it was $1 a minute to speak overseas. And now it's pennies. It was like a big deal, our technology. And after he's giving me a whole play of how the company is going to evolve and develop through faxes and even better than faxes and communicate, he was thinking ahead. He was following the advancement technology. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he says, Rabbi, do you realize what's going on here? And I don't know what he's expecting me to say. I didn't respond, and he says, Rabbi, this is Moshiach. I kind of froze. Like I said, please explain. What do you mean? He says, what don't you understand? You and your colleagues, the Chabad rabbis, you've taught us about the imminence of Moshiach. What is Moshiach? One of the main functions of Moshiach is to bring peace into this world. How do you bring peace? What is peace? War comes as a result of miscommunication. Peace comes as a result of communication. Now that communication is cheap. In the olden days, communication was expensive and hard. We had strife. Now that communication is so cheap. That's it. We will communicate. Peace. And he's telling me this is Moshiach affecting the world. He says, Moshiach is not only the person arriving. Moshiach is bringing in an era. Moshiach's era is upon us. The evolvement of communication, of technology, is part of the process of Moshiach affecting the world. I was blown away. I was blown away. You want to hear the other side of the story? The other side of the story was, a few years later, I came to his office, and we're sitting. I loved speaking to him. He was an intelligent man. He was such a pleasure to talk to. And we spent time, and we started talking to each other. And then all of a sudden, I noticed he's sitting in front of big screens, and you can see he's looking here, there. And all of a sudden, he's picking up the phone, and he's calling, sell, buy, sell. And I saw he's kind of busy. He was distracted. So I said, you know what, Joe, maybe I'll come back another time. No, Rabbi, you got to sit here. I got to talk to you. Anyway, after a while of a very busy hustle and bustle, and finally things quieted down a little, he says, Rabbi, did you hear the news today? I said, not really. I mean, it wasn't like my thing. I said, yeah, I heard something. Clinton was the president and Major was the Prime Minister of England. They both made an announcement that their opinion that patent holders of medical science shouldn't be able to own their patents for the purpose of making money. You created some new technology, a new advancement in medical science, it should belong to the public domain. Now, you could imagine the stock market that works on rumors and the way the wind blows. They heard such a rumor, so what are you doing? You're undermining all the pharmaceuticals. So there was a drop in the stock market like crazy. Fell like a rock. Hundreds and maybe thousands of points. So he's telling me, this announcement affected me seriously because I'm a serious investor in medical science. I study it and I know what to buy. And I've been doing very well. Because of this announcement, we lost a lot of money. And I'm waiting for the scary part. As a fundraiser, he's going to inform me how it's going to affect future donations. That's all I think. And he again, Rabbi, do you get this? And I was scared to open my mouth. He says, Rabbi, this is Moshiach. I've had it. Everything by him is Moshiach. You just described to me how you're losing money. He says, do you understand? One of the things Moshiach is going to do, it's going to be Tchias HaMesim, revival of the dead, cure all the ills, and longevity, Chaim Nitzchim, we're going to be able to. He says, medical science is advancing in that direction. With the Genome Project, with DNA, with all this, things are happening that are going to change life forever. They're going to be able to cure all ills. And so what happened? Big companies are making money off it. Come the two leaders of the world and they say, stop it, guys. This is not for money. This is for the world, for the benefit of the world. This is Moshiach. Basically, medical science is advancing because Moshiach is changing the world. This is what he's telling me. And I'm like, I already had the experience when he's describing to me how he's going to make money because of scientific technology of communications. And now he's losing money. He probably lost millions of dollars. And he is so excited about his loss. All he sees is Moshiach. All I can think to myself, what came to my mind right there and then there? Famous story we have with Rabbi Kletzker. We have a very beautiful story. It goes back 7 generations. A Chassid with Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Kletzker, was a very wealthy man. And when he took stock of his business, when it came to the total, the bottom line, he wrote, Ein oid milvade. The bottom line was, there's nothing besides for the Eibishter. And by us, it's such a beautiful story. This is a real chassid who his bottom line of money and everything is elikus, godliness. I'm looking at a Jew who didn't learn in Temchet Mimim. I don't know if he knows how to read a Likutei Torah from inside. And I don't know how much Chassidus he had learned. And he is living this experience because I heard from you, Chassidim of the Rebbe, Shluchim, you told me that Moshiach is coming. He internalized it. He lived it for good or for bad. That left a very powerful impression on me. It's a real thing. You have to look at things. And I think that's what the Rebbe is asking us. Internalize it. Don't look at it as just a prayer and a wish. And whenever there's a tzorah nebach, the only one who's going to take us out of the tzorah is Moshiach. No, see Moshiach for every way. For good, for bad. That's our goal. There's a goal in life, and the Rebbe put it in front of our eyes. And he said, take a look at the world around you and notice. When they had the whole story, literally a few weeks before Chav Zayin Oder, Pashas Mishpotim, when it was right after in the UN, they spoke about President Bush, spoke about the New World Order, and he related to taking, since the Cold War is over, so we don't need the military anymore for war, we're going to use the military for peaceful purposes. And the Rebbe connected it with the pasuk, V'chitzu charveisom leitim. We're going to take war material and transform it for peaceful purposes. And the Rebbe's words were, when you see things in the world, make the connection. Live that. I mean, if that's our perspective. So there are 2 parts to it. There are 2 parts to it, I think. And I think the Rebbe actually lays it out. After Chav Zayin Nissen, after Chav Ches Nissen, not the immediate next week, but the following week in Tazria Metzera, the Rebbe spoke about what is our relationship to Moshiach. And the Rebbe says there are 2 levels. There is the Rav and there's the Melech. There's Moshiach as a teacher and there's Moshiach as a Melech. The difference? A Melech is an awe-inspiring, he's a king. A king, I don't have any personal relationship, but Melech Shmoi Nikra Aleim, I am under the leadership of this great, I'm a subject of this king. I belong to him, I revere him, I honor him. I respect him. I accept him as my king. But that's Makiv, the Rebbe said. Then there is Rav. He's your teacher. Teacher is Pnimi. So these are two relationships. We need the Makiv. So the Makiv level is a little easier. We can accept upon ourselves, I'm ready to welcome Moshiach and put up a sign, we want Moshiach now. These are all great. We're doing wonderful. But the Rebbe says, no, we need the second part, and that is Rav. That's why the Rebbe instructed us that the way to implement it is through learning Torah of Moshiach.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you something. It's a little going off a little bit, but you mentioned the internet, you mentioned AI, you mentioned this, and I teach an op from high school, so this comes up very often. I actually teach the Alef there sometimes, and very often this topic comes up, and I tell them this idea, right, that the world is changing, the world is moving, everything's set up perfectly to work, right? And we're going to that direction. But as teenagers can do, they always bring out the other side. Okay, but because this is what's happening, and that's happening, and this is not going on good in the world, and that's not going good in the world. I'm going to ask you more specifically about, we know the idea that there's Tzimtzum and there's Choshech and all that. But I'm going to ask you specifically about the age-old question of Achshar Dara. And it's a good question. And especially now. Especially, 30 years after Geulah Tammuz, and especially as the Choshech, as the it's further away, so to speak, in the rear view mirror. Achshar Dara is a big question. Are we up to it? Are we shaykh to it? And again, as Lubavitchers, we can say the Rebbe told us we can do it. We're going to do it. My question is that a message that makes sense to the world? We can tell them that. We can tell them that this generation is the one that can do it.
If I have to come from within, and then you can project it outwardly. From within, you mentioned Geulah Tammuz, you mentioned 30 years. I'm looking from my perspective, as someone who grew up by the Rebbe. I never left. I didn't go around Shlichus out there. I stayed here. I was close. I was there by every Fabringen. I heard everything. I saw everything. Naturally, I felt cheated. My Chassidim, my contemporaries, we were talking amongst each other. We felt cheated. We didn't sign up for this. We didn't sign up to bring families into this world. We're going to have to be raised in such a vacuum. 30 years ago, it was very painful and very scary. The only thing that I remember one of my Chassidim told me, he says, if the Rebbe cared for one girl in Australia to light candles, or for one Jew in Dakar to get a matzah, or some Jew in Holland, in some faraway city in Holland, to be saved from marrying out. People the Rebbe never knew, the Rebbe never saw, never reached out to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe made every effort to affect those people. One of my Chassidim said, does it make sense that the Rebbe just dropped us like a hot potato? It didn't make the pain, it didn't ease the pain, but it was on to something. The Rebbe definitely knew what was happening. The Rebbe always used the language, Friedrich Rebbe knew what was happening, and alles bevornt, everything was taken care of. He put everything in place. How's it going to work? Naturally, 30 years, hindsight is 20/20. But then it was a very painful discussion. The natural order of things is definitely that everything has to fall apart. Ach, shador a bit mehr. Really? You want to say for us Mashiach is going to come? You want to say the internet has all the negativity in the world? Spreads who knows what? And you're telling me that this internet is affecting positively the coming of Moshiach? The fact that things are going south, they're not going south. That's the natural order. The natural order in Teva, HaKlippus Gevrim Beidal, the Rebbe says. Kol Chayel Maze, Koshim Veroim, HaKlippus Gevrim Beidal. That's normal. Nothing new. You want to say the Klippa today is this and it wasn't like that 50 days? Every time had its own Klippa. But the light that we have today is a tremendous chiddush. To be able to see, as a chassid, I'm looking at my children and my grandchildren and the young generation, which thank God I interact with them. You look and you admire. How could that be? No, it could not be. But it is. You can't argue with beautiful, positive facts, even if they make no sense. What does that tell you? Something is in the air. Something is happening that you could not calculate. You could not cause it. So yeah, the Rebbe's line is always, you could do it. You could do it. I can't. Do it. Just watch. It's something like, the Rebbe used this language about bitochen, yeah? The Rebbe said bitochen. We teach bitochen. We should have trust in the Eibusha, trust in the Eibusha. The Rebbe wrote to someone, you learn about bitochen, you learn, but when it comes to reality, wo is der bitochen? When you will have reality, when you will take this bitochen and translate it into reality, meaning you won't worry. Don't calculate. Don't make your calculations because your calculations are so limited. If the Rebbe told us we're going forward, we're going forward. Sometimes, thank God, we have proof. You go back and you look. You look at the world. Why not give credit? You now have these huge projects of Americas, of sea kids and sea teens and Chabad young professionals. They became, this is like almost mainstream Judaism. Who would ever imagine? You're not talking about Tmimim, you're not talking about children who grew up in a Chassidish atmosphere. And they're such proud Jews. They are the future. The future looks so bright. It's not normal. It's not normal. But we went with the Rebbe's Keiches. We undertook projects that nobody would imagine. Who else did it besides us? Nobody had that emunah in the Rebbe. Nobody went with the Rebbe's Keiches. Of course they didn't do it. We went ahead and we did it. We are successful. There's tremendous success. And it's lemaila, it's above nature. It's not your natural course of events. It's happening. So when you ask things are negative, yeah, of course. What's not negative is the chiddush. But the chiddush today is so strong and so powerful, you cannot overlook it. Somebody brings the challenges, yeah, that's okay. You didn't tell me anything new. But that things are beautiful. That's great.
I hear you. And again, as Lubavitchers, this is what we do. This is what we sit every once in a while. We fabring and we go through this and we remind ourselves that and verkehrt. There's so much more that could be done, that needs to be done. But again, the question is, and again, it's a technical question for tomorrow. What do I tell the kids? What do I tell people that didn't grow up with this knowledge and understanding, who aren't looking to find Mashiach in every corner, who don't have this Clarkite, and they're just trying to see it again and again and again.
There's this beautiful story. In the olden days, I don't know if it's around, if they read it, there was a book called Mindy Gets Her Reward. It was a book written by Rebbe Goldie Shem Tov, the wife of Rebbe Shem Tov. She wrote children's stories, and one of the stories she has there, and it was about her own son. That they were in Samarkand or Tashkent, wherever in Russia, and they were talking about what will happen when Mashiach comes. And the child, however old he was, 6, 7 years old, he said, when Mashiach will come, we're going to open the window shades and we're going to tell the whole world we are sitting here and learning Torah. That was the fascination of the child with Moshiach. That's what Moshiach is going to bring. They were living under the most dire circumstances. In Geulah, scared of the communists. They couldn't even learn. And they had to pull the shades down, and everything was in secret. His fascination was, but when Moshiach will come, we'll be able to pull up the window shade. I think, it's not only I think, this is what the Rebbe was telling us, I think. He gave us the tools, and I think that's very important. The Rebbe said, one of the ways to bring Moshiach is through learning in Yoni Geulah Moshiach. That's what the Rebbe connected with the Rav. That's the Rav relationship. We have a more internal relationship with Moshiach through studying about Moshiach. So what did the Rebbe say? Rebbe basically, in a nutshell, he said you should do a few things. First of all, become acquainted with Moshiach. What is Moshiach? What are you believing in? What are you waiting for? What are you looking forward to? In the magazine, Hakriya V'Akdusha, that the Frierdiker Rebbe gave out during the war years, when they came out with the slogan, L'alter l'tshuva, l'alter l'geulah, the Moshiach is imminent, there was a column called Bakentzach mit Moshiach. Become familiar with Moshiach. What are we talking about Moshiach? Someone I knew who came into Lubavitch like from the outside. We once had a discussion, and it was during the Tovshinun, during the intense years of Moshiach, and she says, I dread the moment Moshiach comes. Why? Because she grew up, when Moshiach is going to come, it's going to be a day of judgment. A day of judgment, everybody will get punished, and all your negativity will be exposed, and it's going to be a terrible moment. I don't want Mashiach to come in my times. I mean, this is already a discussion in Gemara also. Do I want Mashiach to come in my days? Because some people saw it as a form of suffering. Some people see it as a moment of liberation. When you educate, another one. They have in Israel, they have a Chidon HaTanach, the Bible quiz, and you once a year, and you become the champion of Tanakh. So one year, the girl who won, a young teenager who came back, I guess, from some sort of religious background, and she's the queen. So she was invited on television to be interviewed. One of the questions they asked her, what is your most favorite part of the Tanakh? Without blinking an eye, she said, Yeshayahu Hanavi. I asked her why. She says, he talks about Geulah. It makes you feel so good. It uplifts you. I'm looking forward to those times. First, get educated. Know what Moshiach will bring. When you know what Mashiach is going to bring, just talk about the simple, plain, good things, like you teach children, or the lollipops are going to grow on the trees and the ice cream will come off the trees. You're not going to have to worry about it. You're going to be able to enjoy yourself. To older people, you say your Ferrari is going to grow on the tree, Make him, but you have to explain it to him in a way. Yeah, this is the Medrash and this is the Nevi'im and this is... Then you won't have to worry. You won't have to worry about paying your bills. You're not going to have the yoke of Geulah. I mean, the Rambam says, only Shibud Malchus B'Levad. You're not going to have a yoke. You're not going to have headaches. You're going to be able to live, keep Torah mitzvahs. You're going to be able to live a very good life. That's one part. But then there are other parts. Familiarize yourself with the language of Mashiach. So when you teach people what Mashiach is, and then you get them used to all of a sudden, you lift them up. The person realizes there's something more. I mean, it's not only about Mashiach, it's even before Mashiach, about Yiddishkeit. You want to talk to a Jew about Yiddishkeit when he's not up to it, and you are able to trigger within him a desire to want to do a mitzvah. How many Jews, since October 7th, we don't need to go far, how many Jews were affected positively towards Yiddishkeit? The story of the two, the prisoner, the captive, and her mother, who both on both ends, one outside of the captivity and one within captivity, became believers on their own. One from a very, obviously, both painful, but one in freedom and one, it only brought them closer to Yiddishkeit because they were thinking, nothing is in a vacuum. So you are able, there are words, there are thoughts, which starts with acquaint yourself. Become acquainted. What is Moshiach? I'm sure you teach teenagers, you teach any Jew what Moshiach will bring. It has to affect him. Yeah, this is what I'm dreaming for. You explain to him, that's what it is. And then you connect it with events in the world. You tell him, listen, the fact that the world has come to this point, whether it is in technology, whether it is in wealth, whether it is in comfort of life, you can convince them this is part of Mashiach's process. Like Joe Aronow told me. I mean, you saw the man lived it. He thought about it. What to tell them? Yeah, that's what you tell them. You bring it close to home. It's not a fantasy, a la la land. You're going to become who knows what. It's real. It's within reach. Within reach. Obviously, we need Moshiach to make it, to affect it fully. But we're on the way. Things are happening. I see that as an absolute tool, and that's why the Rebbe told us to learn. The more we learn, the more we connect. You can also tell a person, this is, I think it's the Chernobyler said it, the Morinaim, that every Jew has a spark of Mashiach within him. Every Jew is a liberator. Every Jew is able to, he has within him the power of liberation. It starts on a very low level. Jews went through Holocaust, communism, and some of these Jews were never felt exiled. I was in control of my beliefs. Nobody could take my beliefs away from me. That's why Jews had Mesiras Nefesh under the most dire circumstances. God protect us. We should never be tested. But we have this ability, in whatever circumstance we are able to rise above the moment, above the challenges of the moment. we are able to, Jews today, you don't need to go far, again, bring it back to October 7th, students on campuses, all of a sudden they're becoming proud Jews. All of a sudden they're coming back to Shabbos. They're coming back to lighting candles. They're coming back to putting on film. In Israel, completely secular teenagers put up film stands to put on film with their friends, with passers-by. Where did they get it from? There was something inside them that all of a sudden, can you explain it? I don't think so. They for sure can't explain it. Maybe I, who learned Chassidus, will be able to tell you about the secrets of their soul. They know nothing about the secrets of their soul. What was it? That's the spark of Moshiach that's in them. There's a redemption. He is able to redeem himself and rise above the constraints, the limitations around him. And this, from the small Moshiach, collectively becomes the big Moshiach. This is Mamesh. And who are these people? Who are we? Like you use the expression, Nanos al-Gabana, we're midgets. We're tiny little people. But we were placed on the shoulders of giants. And the Rebbe is the one, that's our blessing, that we were blessed to have a connection to the Rebbe. The Rebbe is the one who can guide us. And he guides us. And he told us now's the time. If in the past we didn't know or it wasn't the time, the Rebbe told us now's the time. And if I may add, the Rebbe was not the only one. Many Geulah Yisrael from other movements, from other communities, Litvish Geulim and Chassidish Geulim, they join the chorus. They all say the same thing, that the Rebbe, now is the times of Moshiach. And that Moshiach is imminent. So all we need to do is connect. You know what the Rebbe said? I'm like a light switch. The light switch is there. Just flick it on. Connect. Connect to the stream. Every little Moshiach of us, our Moshiach is liberating us. And from that, we affect the whole world. Like the Rambam says, you do one act, and that tilts the world to positive, and you can bring Geulah, Yeshua, to the whole world. Our little Moshiach joins the rest of the world, the collective Moshiach, and that's how we enter the era of Moshiach. And perhaps that's when Moshiach says, okay, guys, you ready for me? I'm ready for you.
Amen. Maybe speedily in our days.
Amen. Amen. Definitely too long.